Some crimes are violent, some are tragic, and some are just so absurd that they make you lose a little faith in humanity. Today, we're diving into the deep end of American absurdity. We're talking about lawsuits so wild, so petty, and so downright unbelievable, you'll think we made them up. Hey guys, and welcome to the Moms and Mysteries podcast, a true crime podcast featuring myself, Mandy, and my dear friend, Melissa. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Mandy. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. How are you?
I am doing so great. I cannot wait for us to do this episode in particular because it's so fun and crazy and makes me feel better about myself that I never would consider doing any of these things.
Right.
So right there, I'm like, I might be a garbage person, but I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't go that far. So it's like the bar. I'm above the bar.
You are above the bar. Yes. These stories we're going to talk about today, they do make you wonder like where people get the audacity and have the nerve
Absolutely.
to try some of these things, because I could never, I just would never. And it's crazy that some people do some of these crazy things and file lawsuits that should never be filed. So let's get started. We're going to take it back to March of 2005. This is something many of our listeners will probably remember, but this is back in 2005. Flip phones are really a hot new thing. MySpace is, the social media mothership. I always forget about MySpace now. I feel like we're so far removed from MySpace. I forget that it was even a thing.
No, the thing you always remember about MySpace, and it gives me PTSD, is that your top 8. And I remember literally having people ask one particular why they weren't on my top 8. And I was like, listen, or they weren't like the number 1. I was like, listen, I got to move things around. And I like to make everybody number 1 at one point.
Right.
It was too much stress. I can't do it.
Yeah. And at this same time that we have all that going on, there's a huge scandal also unfolding in the fast food industry, and it involved a bowl of chili. So if you were alive in 2005 and eating at Wendy's that year, then you definitely remember the headline, "Woman Finds Human Finger in Her Chili." Melissa, you remember this.
I absolutely do. That was a wild time, and I'm so glad we get to learn the whole story.
It is really a wild one. So even though it sounds kind of like an urban legend or like something that you would just hear from a cousin's roommate's boyfriend who says this happened somewhere, this was actually a real story, and it really kind of became a big issue for Wendy's. They made national headlines, and it was just not a great time for them. Some of their restaurants were shut down, employees were getting harassed, and the stock in Wendy's really took a nosedive. And one woman ended up in prison, all because of one rubbery little finger. And it wasn't just a gross headline. This was a full-blown cultural moment, really, for us Americans. As Americans, I feel like everyone lost their minds. America kind of did not want anything to do with the chili. They said they'll just take the fries. And that's what we're talking about today, the Wendy's finger fraud. I do love alliteration and things. The Wendy's
I know
finger
you do.
fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a hoax that was so unhinged, and it proved that greed can really be way scarier than any mystery meat that's even in that Wendy's chili. The wildest part, though, is that the finger wasn't an accident. It was planted by a woman who actually thought that she could outsmart corporate forensics and the entire American legal system. And that woman, our main character of the story, was named Ana Ayala. And the confidence she had in her own genius was maybe a little bit misplaced. So it's a Tuesday night, March 22nd, 2005, and Ana walks into a Wendy's in San Jose, California with her husband named Jamie and a few of their relatives. The restaurant is, bustling. You have the smell of French fries cooking, fryers going, and, just that slightly stale ketchup smell that everyone loves at fast food places. So Ana steps up to the counter and orders a small chili. This is cheap, easy, not very remarkable, but that's until she sits down and starts stirring it, and all of a sudden she takes a bite and instantly something is wrong. There's a rubbery item in the chili that hits her tongue, and there's a lot of questionable textures sometimes, especially in fast food, but this wasn't one of them. This was definitely something horrifying. She spits it out, looks down, and it's a human fingertip. It's pale, wrinkled, and about 1.5 inches long, complete with the nail still attached.
The length, 1.5 inches is not big for
lot.
some things,
I mean,
but it's a lot for this.
it's a
A
lot.
lot for a finger, and then the chili. Oh my
It's a
gosh.
lot. So this woman, Anna, yells out this, this dramatic scream, and everybody in the restaurant kind of freezes up and looks at her when people start realizing what's going on, that she has a finger in a napkin on the table. People are like gasping. There's people dialing 911, and people are even like dry heaving because this is so disgusting. So Anna is also gagging, and she's claiming that she's about to even faint due to this shock of this entire thing. And she starts demanding medical attention. And just like that, chaos takes the wheel. And really, we'll come to find out that's exactly what Anna wanted.
Mandy, before I get into the next part, what are your thoughts on Wendy's chili? Because I love
I
a
love
good
it.
Wendy's chili. It's
One
so
of
good.
Yes, and especially this time of year, October, the fall, I love to go to Wendy's, and what I'll order is a small chili and a baked potato. That's what I
Right.
love to eat from there. Yeah, and I still eat Wendy's chili to this day.
Yeah, this story will not
No,
deter me.
it will not.
It's so good. You put sour cream in it, and it's just cools it down a little, and the crackers, and
I want it right
yeah,
now.
it's a perfect. Yeah, I know. This episode is sponsored by Wendy's. I wish. So by the time San Jose police and health inspectors showed up, the Wendy's looked less like a restaurant and a little more like a crime scene from CSI. Where's the Beef edition? Do you remember the Where's the Beef lady? I remember all the
Yes.
videos. I don't think either of us were old enough for that. So obviously, Wendy's is shut down on the spot. This now infamous bowl of chili, complete with its unwanted protein, gets sealed up in an evidence bag like it's the world's worst murder weapon.
I can't believe they put it in the whole bowl of chili got put in a bag, or just the finger?
Oh, maybe separate.
Oh,
What if
gosh.
it's separate? Two bags. Which bag would you want to hold? The one with the finger or the one that has finger remnants and chili?
But then don't they have to, I wonder, because wouldn't you have to, check the whole entire pot, supply
What if it
of
has
chili?
finger hairs in it?
What if there's more fingers? I don't know.
I didn't even think about that. Like, there's one. Did you stop there?
Right,
There could be more.
We got to check the rest of the chili before we give it to anybody else.
So, of course, the employees are lined up and they're questioned, and managers are panicking. And somewhere in Ohio, Wendy's corporate office was collectively losing their minds. I
Imagine.
don't think Dave was still alive then,
No.
if he was. If not, he was rolling over in his grave, I'm sure. So within an hour, their crisis hotline was hotter than the fryers, and within 24 hours, it was everywhere. Every news broadcast, every talk show, every internet forum. I probably wrote a blog about it on MySpace because that's what you did back then. And of course, there are the people at home that are sitting there, sipping coffee, or like the little frog in the meme, saying, "See, that's why I don't eat fast food."
There were definitely
so
those types.
judgmental.
Yeah.
I know it always happens, but I like to say that how many bags of salad have been recalled for E. coli? A million. So
Right.
You're not going to get one over on me. And so the level of national disgust is really off the charts, and Wendy's sales don't just drop, they plummet. The company estimated a $2.5 million loss in the first wave alone, but some reports say it could have been $30 million.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's more than a PR problem. That's a full-on corporate extinction level event. There was almost no Wendy's. You do think back to this and think it could have gone two ways. It really could have tanked them forever.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And so the way they ended up dealing with it, I'm still pretty impressed. So West Coast restaurants are really ghost towns. These Wendy's nobody's really wanting to go to. There's franchise owners are closing early because no one wants the chili with the finger in it. There's customers that are harassing employees and they want to see the chili before they get it, which if you're going to have to ask to see it, I don't think you should have the chili. Like, if you need to see it.
But also,
It's
isn't it
not for
kind of
you.
it is kind of funny to me that, you find one finger in one Chili's at one Wendy's, and now everyone's freaking out like this is going to become a common thing. Like, come on, people. You guys had to know that it's not like you're going to start finding body parts in chili all over the country. Like, I feel like it's a little maybe.
I mean, 10 fingers. It could just be one person. You never know. No, I totally agree. It's like, and you think it happened then. There's no way it can happen now. You know,
Right,
they've got like
exactly. Like,
cameras in the chili.
right. Something like that only happens once.
Exactly. But here's the thing, Wendy's corporate was not about to let this slide. They knew that if this story stuck, if this was a real story, and if people actually believed that someone's finger ended up in the chili, they're destroyed. So they go to war. Their PR teams work around the clock, the legal department's in overdrive, and the company made it very clear. They were going to prove that that finger didn't come from their kitchen. Meanwhile, inside the San Jose location, the employees are terrified. You can't really blame them because it's got to be the Superman meme again. Everyone's pointing at each other, and
They're
you've got to
pointing the
just be like a
finger,
level
Melissa.
of, oh no, they can't point the finger. Oh wait, no, they can. They're not the ones that did this. So the detectives really start their investigation immediately, and the first step, as you can imagine, even though it sounds crazy, was literally like what you would do with your kids. Say, like, put your hands up.
Let me
and
see all your
everybody, let's count your fingers. Yeah. And so they do like a full 10-finger roll call. And they count every single finger in that kitchen like they're taking inventory, which they were. And shocker, everyone there had 10 fingers.
Imagine.
There's no missing tips. There's no tragic chopping accidents. No, maybe I might have lost one in the chili last week kind of story. So investigators then have to expand their search. They go through every supplier that Wendy's worked with, every meat processor, every farm, asking the world's weirdest question, hey, did someone maybe lose a finger here the other day? You can tell us. We won't be mad, but please just tell us.
It's absurd. Like, it's actually so absurd.
Wouldn't you? I would be the most paranoid person. It doesn't even matter where I'd land on this. I would start thinking I had a phantom sixth finger that had come off because I just could not figure out why this was happening. So not a single person, though, says, hey, I lost a finger. There's no lost appendages. There's no accident reports, no workers' comp claims. There's nothing. And so that's when the picture really starts to shift. That's when forensics gets involved. And experts examine the finger itself, and immediately they spotted that something was off. This finger was, I'm so sorry, but it was pale, wrinkly, and partially cooked. But not the way something would be cooked if it was like simmering all day in a giant pot of chili. I'm glad we know the difference.
Right.
How human body parts, that's probably what the body farm does. Let's put them in chili now. So it really looked like it was heated separately and then added later. And also the cut was really too clean. It's like surgical level clean. There's no jagged edges. There's no crushing or tearing. Just this really neat little slice through bone and tissue. And so that was the turning point, because if this wasn't an accident and nobody at Wendy's was missing a finger, then someone had planted it. And whoever did that wasn't just a disgusting person. They were bold enough to think they could outsmart both science and the entire fast food industry. Spoiler alert, they could not. And we still have so much more to get into after a quick break to hear a word from this week's sponsors. Mandy, did you see the forecast for Friday? There is a high of 70 degrees. And I gotta say, I feel like that's just the universe giving us official permission to wear sweaters again.
Finally, I have been waiting for this moment for months. I'm pulling out my Quince cashmere, those $50 Mongolian cashmere sweaters that are seriously the softest things I own. It feels like something I'd have to hide from my cat because it's that nice.
Cooler days call for layers that actually last, and Quince has become my go-to for quality essentials. I've been living in their jeans lately. They fit perfectly. They don't lose their shape, which really is basically a miracle.
And let's talk about their outerwear. I'm eyeing one of their wool coats. They look totally designer, but cost a fraction of the price. You'd never guess they're able to do that because they work directly with ethical factories and skip the middlemen.
Exactly. It's smart, stylish, and doesn't blow your budget. I love when something feels like a treat, but also makes sense.
Find your fall staples at Quince. Go to quince.com/moms for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/moms to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/moms.
And now back to the episode.
So before the break, we were talking about the full story of the infamous finger in the Wendy's chili that happened in 2005. And at the point in the story where we left off, the authorities were really starting to realize that something was off about the whole situation. They couldn't figure out how the finger got there, but they knew for sure that nobody who worked at Wendy's was missing a finger. And they came to the conclusion that someone must have planted this finger there, which honestly, even as somebody who's like looking into this and investigating it, like even jumping to that step, like, well, someone had to have planted it, like that sounds insane.
It
Like to
sounds
even
very flat earth.
it
It sounds
does.
quite
It
a
does.
bit.
Like, because what do you mean? But at this point, Wendy's is really bleeding money. We're talking millions of dollars vanishing daily, and their reputation is circling the drain faster than yesterday's chili, to be honest. So the corporation decided to do something bold. This is kind of like a Hail Mary, this better work, or like you said before, the whole company's going under. They offered a $100,000 reward for any information that could solve the finger in the chili case. They actually made a public announcement that said, we're so confident this did not happen in our restaurant, we will literally pay six figures to prove it. So this is a massive gamble on their part, especially because they are already losing so much money. And if they're wrong, maybe if there was some poor employee somewhere who had lost a finger and just didn't say anything, this could kind of blow up in their face and become a lot more embarrassing than it already was. But Wendy's bet big on their own cleanliness and their food safety systems, and most importantly, they're putting all their eggs in the basket that this woman, Ana Ayala, is up to no good, and she's trying to get one over on them. And it really paid off for them. Once the investigators started digging into Ana's background, they realized they weren't dealing with a shocked victim. They were actually dealing with a professional. She was not new to the legal rodeo. She actually had been around the block. How many times, Melissa? Once, twice, three times? What do you think?
13. 13 times? That's
13
crazy.
times. She has filed 13 lawsuits before this one. She has hit car dealerships, grocery stores, restaurants, and even the owner of a neighbor's dog. So if there was a way to cash in on any type of complaint, Anna had already tried it. She really had become kind of a local legend in Vegas for her ability to kind of find these injuries and injustices wherever she went, and somehow managed to frequently walk away with a nice little settlement check. So friends of hers said that she was someone who loved drama, which clearly if you're willing to put a finger in Wendy's chili, like you definitely are someone who
Right.
loves drama and attention. Her family also said that about her, that she was very attention hungry, I guess. And every court docket that she ever appeared on said that she loved money. So yeah, when detectives saw her name on this case, the alarm bells went off immediately. They dug deeper and discovered that Anna and her husband, Jamie, were really in this financial freefall at the time. They had like foreclosure level chaos in their lives. Jamie had just lost his construction job. And since this story just needs another layer of disaster, Jamie was also under investigation for another fraud case. And the couple's debts were piling up. The stress was suffocating them. And Anna, I guess, found, this idea, or came up with this idea. And when she found a human finger in her chili, quote unquote, the investigators couldn't help but notice that it didn't really seem like a shocking discovery after all. It seems a lot more like a last-ditch money grab. This was not a woman who had been traumatized by a severed finger. It was someone trying to turn a fast food chain into her personal ATM. And the plan, as it turned out, was extremely simple. They were going to stage this horrifying incident, sue Wendy's for millions of dollars, and then cash out, before the truth catches up to them. So Anna saw Wendy's initial panic and probably thought to herself, perfect, they're going to want this to go away. They'll give me a quick settlement. It'll be an easy payday and I'll be out of here. That is
true.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
For sure. What she didn't count on was that they were going to bring in professionals and forensic science, corporate fury. All these things are playing into the fact that she's not going to get away with this. And also, people are starting to be like, hey, there's not a whole lot of places that you can even get your hands on a human finger. So what's going on here?
Get your hands on a human finger. So investigators send the finger off for DNA testing, and what they get back really just turns this whole thing upside down. The DNA doesn't match Anna, because, I got to assume they made her do the 10 fingers challenge, and it also doesn't match her husband, Jamie. It doesn't match a single Wendy's employee, supplier, or anyone within a chili splash radius of that San Jose restaurant. Instead, the DNA actually leads them to a man in Nevada. This guy tells police he'd actually worked with Jamie at a construction site weeks earlier. And that, yes, he had in fact lost his finger in a work accident. Totally legitimately just a freak thing that happened to him. But then he drops a bomb so weird that even the detectives needed a moment to really soak it all in. He said he had given his severed finger to Jamie as repayment for a debt.
What on earth?
Saying it's for a debt is a crazy thing to say and to do and to accept as repayment.
Someone I know and just being like, "Hey, can I buy your finger?" or just give it to me and we'll consider whatever you owe me.
Hey, you owe me $200. Just if you give me that finger that just came off, we'll call it even. Like, what are you going to do with it, you freak?
I know. For that reason alone, I would be like, no.
No,
this is my finger. Get your own.
Exactly. At that point, even the cops are looking around, thinking like, oh my gosh, are we being punked? Where's Dax Shepard? Where's Ashton Kutcher? But really, no, this is the real deal. The story actually checks out. So now this entire picture with Anna and Jamie and the fingerless man comes into focus. And they learn that Anna and Jamie have been keeping this finger in their freezer, like it was a bag of peas or leftover lasagna, just waiting until the perfect moment to use it.
Gross.
At least it was fresh. When they planned their trip to California, they brought it with them. I can't. They defrosted it and then they just dropped it right into a bowl of chili.
Oh.
Imagine you have to put that in your mouth if you want this to
If you want it to look real.
And you imagine that bite coming up to your mouth. I guess you just have to be thinking about money because there's no other way that thing could be coming to your mouth and I'm going to lose it. Okay. And anyway, once investigators are able to piece it all together, the whole thing falls apart, right? So instead of walking away with millions, Anna and Jamie walked straight into a legal disaster. They ended up being arrested and charged with attempted grand larceny and conspiracy, and put the emphasis on attempted because their plan didn't even work. Wendy's never paid them a dime. The courtroom drama that followed was everything you'd expect. It was high emotion, corporate lawyers breathing fire, and a very unimpressed judge who called their actions, quote, a fraud fueled by greed and a total disregard for innocent people's livelihoods, end quote. And he wasn't exaggerating. Wendy's franchise owners testified about losing half their business overnight. There's employees that are laid off, managers are being harassed, and the ripple effect of this one woman's fake finger fiasco, alliteration again, was enormous. When it's all said and done, Anna pleads guilty and gets 9 years in prison. She served 4 years before being paroled in 2009. Jamie got 12 years and 4 months, and considering he was already involved in another fraud case, it kind of feels very on brand. The court also ordered them to pay $21 million in restitution to Wendy's, which, I mean, sometimes I'm like, why did we even put that in writing?
Right.
Like, you just wasted your time with that. They're never going to be able to pay you back. So to recap, they destroyed lives, they wrecked a national brand's reputation, and they ended up with prison time, restitution, and the eternal title of those people who put a finger in chili, all over a scam that made about as much sense as paying your electric bill with Monopoly money.
Seriously, because I also would like to know. So, like, when they asked if they could have this man's finger, I wonder, did they have an actual plan at that point? Or were they like, I don't know what we're going to do with this yet, but like, we're going to get an idea one day.
Put it on ice. Put it on ice. We've got
Or did they have an idea in mind? Because that is so random. And there's so many different ways. I feel like if you were thinking about like ways that you're going to try and like sue a restaurant or whatever, like I feel like there's a lot of different things you could potentially fake. But like, how did it cross your mind to put a finger in the chili? Like there are legitimate things that happen at restaurants that I feel like would be easier to fake and get away with than this.
Totally. What came first, the finger or the chili? We don't know. I mean, did this guy, like you're saying, did he lose his finger and then they had the idea? Or
Right.
did he cut his finger off? I'm not saying
Right.
that. That's not, nobody
No.
has said that. Nobody alleges that. But it is crazy to be like, well, while we're here, just give it to me. Because the hospital did not give it back to him. That's like
No.
all kinds of issues. So it had to be from the work site that he handed it to. Like,
Just
was
give
it
it
in
to
that moment? Was it in
And
that
imagine
moment?
like right after you got your finger cut off, some guy is like, "Can I have that?"
He pops up like the guy in the alleyway in Charlie in the Chocolate Factory that just kind of
Right.
like pops up and has a question for you. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. So let's talk about the aftermath, though. The Wendy's finger fraud wasn't just some flash in the pan tabloid story. It really rocked the entire fast food world. And the case did more than just gross people out. It actually made them rethink whether they could ever trust a drive through again. Wendy's corporate basically had to go into PR rehab. They rolled out new crisis response plans. They had food safety protocols, forensic testing procedures, the whole nine yards. Managers were getting trained in how to handle emergencies like this. I guess if you ever need to know how to handle a body part in your entree again, like, then they had training for this. They were giving away free Frosties. They were giving out coupons. And they tried everything short of an exorcism to get customers back in the door. They even had to find ways to scrub the words finger and chili from being used in the same sentence ever again. Once the internet, takes a hold of something like that, that's your legacy. Good luck recovering from that. So they had they had their work cut out for them.
Yeah.
And thankfully, for those of us who do love Wendy's and Wendy's chili, it worked eventually. The company did stabilize, the sales returned, and life kind of moved on. But of course, that public disgust kind of sticks around. And Wendy's finger chili became shorthand for hoax and scam. Now that's kind of what everyone thinks of when we think of Wendy's chili. But let's be real, the whole saga tapped into something much deeper than chili trauma. It really hit that primal, universal fear that just maybe the thing you're eating isn't what you think it is.
Oh, why would you bring it up again, though?
America had not really had that same level of food-related anxiety about, eating out in public and being in the public sector like that since the Tylenol poisonings of 1982, which I was not around for.
Okay.
But every time a story...
I wasn't either.
I know you weren't either. But every time a story like this breaks, it really just kind of shakes up that fragile trust that we all have, that we're putting our faith in the people who are feeding us. We want to believe that the food that we're eating at restaurants and fast food places is safe and that the kitchens are clean and that there's not a severed finger lurking in the depths of your dinner. And of course, when that illusion breaks, everybody kind of panics, which you can definitely understand. But then there's still Anna that we have to talk about. After serving her prison sentence, she was released and she did what any remorseful person would do. Just kidding. She actually just went on TV and said that she still eats at Wendy's, which why wouldn't you? You knew that the whole thing was a hoax all along.
Why don't you use her for the commercials? The lady
Right.
claimed that she's taken Wendy's to court, she's lost, and she still eats there. That's a commercial.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, she nearly destroyed this entire company. But when reporters asked her if she even felt guilty, she said she'd been set up. She didn't even know where the finger came from. That's what she said.
Oh,
and she tried to rebrand herself as this misunderstood victim of a corporate smear campaign. So, yeah. Investigators, of course, are not buying that. The evidence was really rock solid. The DNA was undeniable, and her freezer was very telling. But even with all that, Anna cemented her place in true crime history, not as a victim, but as the poster child for greed, delusion, and one of the most bizarre scams ever pulled in the name of fast food. And as for that $100,000 reward that Wendy's put up, it ended up being split between two tipsters. One of them was a guy named Mike Casey, who worked at the asphalt plant with both Jamie and the original finger donor, if you will.
Donor.
Yeah. And it feels kind of like a poetic ending, I guess. The guy who probably saw the least drama got the cash, and the people that caused all the chaos went to prison.
I was glad to hear the finger guy got money.
Me too. Yeah. Yeah.
Although he had a debt, and what was that debt? We don't know enough.
Right.
Optimistically, I'm glad that he got it. So now we're heading to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's August 2002. There's two 17-year-old boys, Jeffrey Klein and Brett Birdwell, and they're hanging out at Jeffrey's mom's house and doing what teenage boys do best. They're making bad decisions with their whole chest.
Absolutely.
So they decide to climb up on top of a stationary railroad boxcar because apparently the view from the ground just wasn't giving what it needed to give. But what they didn't realize was that directly above them was a 12,500 volt wire, the kind of wire that powers trains. So if you're wondering how close you have to get to 12,500 volts before it kills you, it turns out not very close. Jeffrey didn't even touch the wire. The electricity actually just went through the air and hit him like a lightning bolt. He was engulfed in flames instantly. And Brett is there with his friend, and he tries to help him, and he ends up getting caught in this electrical field as well. The injuries were really catastrophic. Jeffrey suffered burns over 75% of his body. He lost most of the use of his left hand, and he spent years in recovery. Brett was burned over 18%, and though his injuries were less severe, his trauma was just as deep.
These boys are so incredibly lucky to be alive. And like, oh my gosh,
Beyond.
having teenage boys, I'm like, yeah, I can see how kids get in these stupid situations. But you're like, what on earth were you thinking? And like, you are so lucky that you are here.
Absolutely, yeah. And just to be clear, these boys were trespassing. There were no trespassing signs everywhere. So they weren't confused about what they were doing. They knew they were trespassing. But one impulsive decision turns into a life-altering tragedy, and it didn't end there. Because somehow, this horrible accident turned into one of the most controversial lawsuits in American history.
So fast forward a few years, Jeffrey and Brett, who at this point are both now adults, take Amtrak and Norfolk Southern to court. And their argument was that the railroad company should have done more to warn about the dangers of those high voltage wires, which what I've been, I mean, I can't say what signage was actually at this particular place, but I have certainly seen a lot of signs that like alert you to the fact that you should not be in this area if it's high voltage area.
Right.
I don't know if there was or wasn't, but I feel like it's hard to say that you didn't know that you were in a dangerous area. So before everybody just rolls their eyes and says, oh, they're not going to get anywhere with this, hold on to your horses, because the case actually made it to federal court in Philadelphia. In October of 2006, the jury dropped a verdict that shocked pretty much everyone when they awarded the two men a combined $24.2 million. Jeffrey got over $11 million in compensation, and Brett got around $588,000. And then, as if that wasn't enough, the jury threw on another $12.5 million in punitive damages. The railroad companies argued the obvious, which was that the boys were trespassing, that they knew better, and this accident was completely on them. But the plaintiff's attorney had a different take, and it really hit a nerve. He argued that even if the boys were trespassing, property owners still have a duty to prevent foreseeable harm. In plain English, just because someone breaks the rules doesn't mean you can let them get electrocuted, which, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
It's true. But so the jury was asked a question that basically split the whole nation down the middle, which was, should a company be responsible for protecting people, even the ones who are breaking the rules, if the danger is so extreme that you can predict that someone would die from doing this? And the jury said, yes, it's absolutely their responsibility to prevent death at all costs. So the court decided that even though the boys were in the wrong, the railroad companies should have anticipated that curious teenagers might climb on top of boxcars. They should have made the dangers a lot more obvious and, of course, harder to access. And that ruling didn't just hand over $24 million. It completely redefined how corporations think about liability. This case opened Pandora's box, so to speak. Suddenly, people everywhere were arguing about it. You had professors, lawyers, parents, talk show hosts. Everybody was talking about this case. And, you know, on one hand, you've got the personal responsibility camp. These were two nearly grown men, almost. They were old enough to drive. They were old enough to have jobs. They were certainly old enough to read signs that said danger, high voltage. And why should a company have to pay for their mistake? But on the other hand, you've got the corporate accountability camp. Amtrak and Norfolk Southern own infrastructure that's literally deadly. They knew people, especially teenagers, might be tempted to climb those trains, and they didn't do enough to keep that from happening. So it boiled down to one miserable existential question. Where does personal responsibility end and corporate liability begin? I'm not sure we have really even found that line to this day.
Agree.
But the answer, at least in this case, was somewhere in the middle, leaning pretty heavily toward corporate liability. The verdict basically told every company in America, even if someone breaks the law to get hurt on your property, if it's foreseeable, it's your problem. It was a total philosophical nightmare because, sure, it feels unjust to make a company pay millions for someone else's mistake, and sometimes not even, I wouldn't even call it a mistake. They intentionally went where they weren't supposed to be. But it also feels wrong to let a kid be burned alive and then just, say, well, they shouldn't have been there, which you do understand both sides and how this case did become such a controversial talking point.
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, fully at first when I was reading this, I was like, kids are idiots. Not that that should have happened to them, but like, I don't think they have a case. But then hearing and thinking like, oh my gosh, kids are still kids and they're
Right.
idiots.
And my own
And
kids are
they're,
idiots, right? And I wouldn't want
yeah,
something like this.
everyone's kids are
Right. And
idiots.
so I wouldn't want, nobody wants their, yeah, you can say they're almost fully grown. Okay. My son is 16, right? Your daughter is approaching 17. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, they might be almost 18, but like that's still, these are our babies, right? Like, and we still know they make mistakes. They do stupid things. They make stupid decisions and they don't deserve to die because of it. So there is that part of it.
Yeah, and you can't think of every single thing to tell your kid not to do. You can't be like, okay, today, here are the things you cannot do. If
Right.
there is a sign for this, like you're going to miss stuff. Obviously, the goal is for your kid to respect these kind of things and know that something can lead to it. But if it really is in a place that people can have access to, you have to assume, I guess that's what the whole thing is, right? You have to assume that someone could do this.
Right.
And so then they would die. That's a tough one for me, really. I'm surprised and not surprised that the jury, awarded them all that. But wow.
Yeah, definitely a wild, wild case. And we have another crazy lawsuit to get into after a quick break to hear a word from this week's sponsors.
And now back to the episode. Okay, so after two stories that really make you question humanity's relationship with common sense, let's end with some that just make you question humanity, period. Meet Robert Lee Brock, a man serving time at the Indian Creek Correctional Center in Virginia back in 1995. Robert, bless his little heart, decided that since the world wasn't holding him accountable enough, he'd do it himself. He filed a 7-page handwritten lawsuit against himself. He literally sued himself. And his argument was that by drinking alcohol back in 1993, he had, quote, violated his own civil rights. And doing this caused himself to commit crimes that eventually landed him in prison. So he asked for the obvious, which would be $5 million in damages from himself from his jail cell. Unfortunately, he's not like rolling in cash at the moment, so he can't pay it. So he says, why doesn't the state of Virginia just pay it on my behalf
Clever.
to myself? Honestly, this is very much one of those things where I'm like, I don't want this to work, but
I kind of do.
I kind of do. But somehow this case actually goes all the way to federal court. Judge Rebecca Beach Smith had to sit down and read all of this nonsense and write what might be the most polite judicial eye roll in history. She did commend him on his innovative approach to civil rights litigation, which is basically legal speak for, sir, we do not have time for this. She then points out, very reasonably, that even if she ruled in his favor, it would be impossible to enforce a judgment requiring Robert Lee Brock to pay Robert Lee Brock. But don't worry, Robert wasn't done. Oh no. Once he got a taste for this legal spotlight, he went full performance artist. He later filed another lawsuit claiming prison officials were tampering with his dreams, and another one that said he was being forced to watch Baywatch, and that violated his religious rights. Here's the thing, that one almost makes sense. If they only play one thing and it's against your, what I'm like, okay, Robert, why do I keep coming on your side? This is not a good thing. I'm worried. And here's the craziest twist of all. His antics actually helped inspire part of the Prison Litigation Reform Act of 1996, which was designed to stop inmates from filing ridiculous lawsuits like his. So, in a weird way, Robert Lee Brock changed federal law, all because he sued himself for being his own worst enemy.
So next up on our tour of legal lunacy is a guy named Richard Overton. No, we're not talking about the World War II veteran, but instead a very disappointed man from San Francisco. In 1991, Richard decided to sue Anheuser-Busch, that's the makers of Budweiser beer, and his reason was because the commercials lied to him. So those classic Budweiser ads that we all grew up seeing, the ones with the beaches, the really great, gorgeous-looking people, and the magical parties, well, those commercials made Richard believe that drinking Budweiser would lead to a paradise-like experience with beautiful women everywhere. And when that didn't happen, Shocking, I know. He said he suffered emotional distress, mental injury, and financial loss, and so he sued the company for $10,000. The kicker, though, was Richard Overton actually didn't even drink alcohol. He was a teetotaler, and so there was really no, he was never going to get this paradise-like experience because he wasn't even drinking the beer.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So he wasn't even mad about his personal lack of beer-induced romance. He claimed that he was standing up for other people's disappointment. But his complaint was actually very detailed, like paragraph after paragraph describing the fantasy sequences of Budweiser commercials and how fake they were. And his lawyer even argued that it was subliminal advertising. He said that Anheuser-Busch wasn't selling beer, they were selling an illusion. Isn't that what all alcohol companies are selling?
Yeah.
I feel like
Literally, that's it.
that's their entire shtick, really. But the court, however, didn't agree. The judge ruled that the ads were puffery, which is basically the legal term for harmless marketing exaggeration, kind of like world's best coffee or our fries are addictive, those kind of things. It's not really true. It's just something that you kind of put out there to sell your product.
But it is funny because we get ad copy and stuff, and there's very much do's and don'ts. Like you can't say something is addictive or there's certain words you cannot use.
Right.
So it is interesting that there is this legal loophole of other things you can kind of say. And Richard was really trying to get in on that.
Yes, he was. But the case got dismissed and Richard didn't get his 10 grand or his imaginary beach party. But he really might have been ahead of his time because years later, people actually did win lawsuits over false advertising, such as when Red Bull had to pay out $13 million because it didn't actually give people wings, or when Subway got sued for their footlong sandwiches. I remember when this one happened, it came out that they only measured 11 inches and people lost their minds because it was not 12 inches. So in a way, Richard kind of walked so the Red Bull plaintiffs could fly. Figuratively, of course, because,
we don't want to get sued.
Right.
Until Tampax and all of those companies give us money for not having your period and riding on horses on the beach and stuff like that, I don't want to hear about his Budweiser fantasies. We've been lied to for years, for decades even. Yeah. Nobody's riding a horse on their period. My gosh.
No, or the ones where they're dancing around, and I'm like, who's doing that?
Happy.
Right.
And you don't even want to look in the mirror on your period. You hate who you see looking back at you.
I'm not wearing a dress and twirling around in some
No. Show one of me with a heating pad on my stomach, and maybe I won't sue you. Okay, so this one is probably my personal favorite because it's got everything: ego, irony, and one very expensive pair of pants. So in 2005, a Washington, D.C. administrative law judge named Roy Pearson sued his local dry cleaners. It was a small family-owned business run by the Chung family, and he sued them because they lost his very favorite pair of gray pants.
I get it. I gotta say, I get it.
Honestly, I know. When you find that magic pair of pants that just works, the idea of losing them could make you emotional. I have to wear talls, so I have to order mine specially online. It's just a whole thing. And if I find them, you're going down.
Yeah.
So a normal person, not me or Mandy, would ask for a refund. But Roy Pearson was not a normal person. He filed a lawsuit asking for $67 million, which I don't think is enough for losing your favorite pair of pants.
Well, I think it was funny that he had said that their sign said satisfaction guaranteed, but he was saying that was false advertising because he was not satisfied, which I feel like is actually okay, you got me there. I wouldn't be satisfied either, and it does say satisfied guaranteed. Satisfaction guaranteed.
Guaranteed. Yeah. Honestly, good point. I think we're about to have about 50 lawsuits to file after this episode, Mandy.
I can think of a few right now.
So later, though, in a moment of mercy, he reduces the amount he's asking for to $54 million, which is much better. So he also itemized it. He asked for $500,000 for emotional damages, $2 million for mental distress, which I don't understand what's different with those two, $15,000 for car rental fees to drive to another cleaner, and the remaining $51.5 million to help other DC consumers hold businesses accountable. He took it all the way to trial, though. He dragged the Chung family through years of hell. He even made their teenage son cry on the stand, which now I'm out now, Roy.
I know.
You've gone too far. But after 2 long years, the judge finally threw it out, calling it one of the most frivolous cases in D.C. history. So Roy not only lost the case, but he also lost his job as a judge, which still blows my mind that was his occupation doing all of this. And just when you think we've hit peak absurdity, Mandy, we have a psychic who sued a hospital because she claimed a CAT scan destroyed her supernatural powers.
Oh.
She said the radiation severed her connection to the spirit world, and she wanted compensation for lost spiritual income. Is that real dollars and cents, or is that what is spiritual income?
Not a lot of sense. I don't know.
Yeah. The case, though, didn't go anywhere. And then next, we've got a man who sued Michael Jordan and Nike founder Phil Knight for $416 million, claiming his life was ruined because people kept mistaking him for Michael Jordan. For the record, these two looked nothing alike. Just the fact that you would do that and not just receive a compliment, you look like Michael Jordan, the most successful basketball player of all time. Oh, that's really an insult. Come on, just enjoy it. And there's another favorite, Christopher Roller, who was a self-proclaimed magician from Minnesota, who sued David Copperfield and David Blaine for stealing his godly powers. He claimed they owed him 10% of their net worth for using his divine energy without permission.
Oh, man.
Yeah, the audacity for this. He should have gotten at least 20%.
Right.
It is wild to me the things that people take the time to go through this. Like, it's years of your life.
Years of your life and money. Like,
things.
filing a lawsuit is
so
not
much
free.
money.
Like, it costs a lot of money to take a lawsuit to this level. Like, it is wild.
Yeah.
And then, like, what happens if you lose? Now you're just out money and you look stupid? I don't know. It's crazy that people come up with these. Being in a financial position where you feel like you need money and you're desperate. Like, I get that that's not a good position for you to be in or feel like you're in. You can't get me with putting fingers in fast food and stuff like that. That's a little too desperate.
Listen, the one that I did find myself relating to the most is the guy who wanted to sue himself, because I wake up every day. I want to sue myself for emotional distress.
Someone has to.
I have to wake up and be me every day. Yeah. You're telling me I shouldn't be monetarily compensated? Come on. This is a lot of life to live.
I know. I want the state to pay for it as well.
I do. State of Florida, pay us. Yeah. So anyway, those were great. That's just crazy stories. Let us know what your favorite one is. And while you're listening, if you want to go ahead and just hit subscribe if you haven't already done that, please leave us a review.
Yeah.
On Spotify, Apple. Mandy reads all of them and tells me all the nice ones. And we love that and we really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will be back next week. Same time, same place, new story.
Have a great week.
Bye.